Yo, what is up guys, Grim here, and welcome to our first science video of Siege of the Atlas. And in today's video, we're going to be answering how worth it is Ambush, or Strongboxes as a lot of other people know it by. So in this video, you're going to find out how rare each of the different Strongboxes are, and of course, how much loot you can expect to get from running Strongboxes on your map. So in order to have this experiment work, we've got a bit of an interesting setup here. So I've rolled 100 city square maps, as well as collected a ton of Scarabs, which are going to give us a pretty good idea of how rare each Strongbox is, as well as a really good idea of what the baseline is you guys can expect to make from running 100 Alkengo maps. Of course, we'll have the Strongbox stuff in there, but we'll also be recording that baseline, giving you guys a bit of a control and what to expect in terms of how much you could earn when doing this strategy yourself. So let me give you a bit of a breakdown before we move on to the juicy details. So of course, I have 100 city squares here, which I've rolled with chisels, then I alked them, and then I valved them. Due to the fact my build can run any modifiers, I haven't been too picky about what's on them, and I've also not worried about the Val outcomes, but you may want to re-roll these as you see fit. Now, I have also lost 5 of my maps here to Val Temple, so a quick tip for you guys, it looks like it's about a 5% chance for a map to turn into a Val Temple. Definitely pretty interesting, and some nice little juicy info for yourself to arm yourself with, so pretty damn good. Okay, so let me take you through the setup. So we've got obviously the 100 maps, which are about worth 5C each in bulk, and then we've also got some Scarabs we're opting to run here. I've chosen the absolutely cheapest, most worthwhile Scarabs that you can go for without investing into too heavy of a league direction. I wanted generic and I wanted baseline. So what we've gone for here at the baseline is Metamorph Scarabs, which cost 1C each, which are a great money maker. We've gone for Cartographers to get some map sustain going, hopefully over sustain as well. And then we've also gone for Harbinger. So Metamorph are 1C, Cartographers are 2, and Harbingers are 2 as well. So Rusted Harby, Polished Carto, and Rusted/Polished Metamorph. So that brings our total investment so far to 5C for the maps, as well as 5C for the Scarabs. Now, what really did jack up the cost, though, is testing out Ambush, which is the main reason we're doing this video. So Ambush Scarabs for the Polished variety, which gives you 4 additional Strongboxes, cost 6C each. And then we're further using Kirac on the map device, which is costing us 4C each, jacking the price up to 10C just for the Ambush, but we're getting 8 Strongboxes out of that, bringing our total investment now per map to 20C. So overall, not sure if the Ambush stuff is going to be worth it. You'll have to watch until the end of the video, because you guys are going to get to see the future me after I've done them all with the footage all edited together. But right now, I actually have no idea how much we're going to make, but you guys will. Okay, so that's the breakdown. In addition to that, we'll also be rolling 4 sextants on every single map. Now, I can't estimate exactly how much this is going to cost, but my general thinking is I'm going to put 100 awakened sextants in the tab. We're going to record that as a cost, and then we'll see how much we end up with at the end to realize how many we've used versus how many we've dropped. And overall, it should probably be a little bit less than 100, and we'll see how much we've used. In addition to that, we'll also have some sextants, which we can sell, I have no doubt. Probably some delirium mirrors and some beyond and stuff like that. It'll be pretty interesting to see how much money we made just off of rolling sextants. On the Atlas tree, I've fully spec'd into all of the generic stuff. Again, we want to isolate Ambush and also get a good idea of how much you can expect to make with baseline mapping. So we've fully invested into Harbinger, Heist, Eater of Worlds, Shrines, Boxes, and Essences. We haven't touched any league mechanic like Legion or anything like that. Those are reserved for later testing. Right now, all we care about is the baseline and Ambush. So present me says goodbye, enjoy some farming footage, and of course, look forward to the results, as you guys get to see after I finished all 100 maps and the profit and the juicy info that we're gonna have. So I'll see you guys then. Alright guys, let me take you through how I ran the maps because I found out some pretty interesting discoveries. But first, this is a new format, so if you actually did enjoy this type, make sure to leave me some feedback, but also thumbs up the video and chuck a sub to the channel if you're not already. But let's get into the discoveries. So in each of my maps, in order to record the data, I first ran the entire map and then I portaled out, put all the loot in my stash, recorded that, and then I went back into the map and popped all of my Strongboxes to record the loot separately so we could get a good idea of exactly how much money we were making versus the Strongboxes versus the map. Okay, so that's the kind of method to my madness here, and you'll see me doing that in the background footage in the background here. Now, in addition to that though, I did run into a few snags, and the reason this video is probably titled, budget or, low investment is because I discovered a fatal flaw with Strongboxes in the map layout that I selected. So once I put in my first few maps here with the polished ambush Scarabs, I realized very quickly that I was going to be unable to use those Scarabs, and the reason for that is due to the small tile set that City Square is, some of the Strongboxes just didn't spawn. On some of my first maps, I got 7 or 8 Strongboxes, but then on the following ones I went down to something like 4 just randomly, and that was because there was too many mechanics in the map and it was culling out some of my boxes, essentially wasting my money. From this point onwards, I decided that I was going to drop out the Scarab and use some sacrificial fragments in their place and just go with Kirac, because I'd still be able to acquire some pretty good information on Strongboxes, and it would actually make it a lot more affordable in the long run for everyone to run this strategy. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about some of the other things that I discovered here with the Alk and Go strategy that we're doing in the background here. So overall, it was very profitable, which I'm sure you saw from the title and the thumbnail. But in general, there is a few things that you're going to have to pay attention to and which are unique to what I did specifically here in the 100 maps I ran. So overall, I did skip most mechanics which I wasn't a fan of, stuff like Blight, Abyss, Breach for the most part, Legion I did a bit of, but overall there's not too many things that I engage with outside of Ritual. I even really did actually skip the main lead mechanic as well. I didn't do Arc Nemesis in this entire 100 maps because there was just too much to keep track of, really. And overall, when we get to the actual currency breakdown, the only thing in there really is what we described as the main things we were focusing on: Harbinger, Heist, Ambush, as well as Metamorph, and shrines and stuff along those lines, and essences, sorry. So those are the main things. When we're talking about the altars though, those are of course a massive focus, and I discovered a few things about the altars overall. So I hadn't done too much City Square this league, and really getting into it and running 100 maps and recording all the data and paying attention to what was going on really changed my perspective on altar farming. City Square is by far, in my opinion, the most powerful altar farming map due to the fact that you can manipulate the altar rolls with killing the boss first, forcing every altar to give you either a monster % chance to drop something or a more multiplier on your loot in the map. And the reason this is important is because you've got a higher chance to get the actual Eldritch crafting currency roll as well as the Scarab roll. But in addition to that, you also have access to a very other powerful roll, and that roll is chance to duplicate basic currencies. Now you might expect that basic currencies are stuff like fusings and all sorts of stuff like that, but they're also stuff like the Eldritch currencies themselves. Those are considered basic currencies, meaning they're straight up more multipliers to all of the stuff that you already have in your map, which makes it insane. You're essentially getting more multipliers on more multipliers in terms of your loot, meaning it's far, far more powerful than you would expect. And overall, it does lead to some pretty impressive results. In addition to that, you can also get stuff like map duplication, and overall, the Scarab and the currency duplication and the map duplication is very, very good and synergistic with the strategy we're running here, but also it helps to juice up the Strongbox side of things as well. In addition to that, you can also just get like map quantity and all sorts of stuff along those lines as well. But I'm sure you guys are burning, itching to know what the results are here. Overall, I have tried to be as strict as possible with the loot, and you'll see that in a little bit here with the actual breakdown of all the loot. But overall, that should give you guys a pretty good explanation of how we ran the maps and a few discoveries. If you're looking to run ambush in the future, I'd much, I'd very highly recommend doing it on a very massive map so you have as much opportunity to have all your Strongboxes spawn and you're not losing massive amounts of value overall from your Strongboxes Scarabs, which are very expensive right now. So let's dive into the results. Money time. All right, guys, let me take you through how much we earned and how we earned it. But first, I'm going to need to give you guys an overview of my Atlas passive tree I used for this experiment. If you want to grab this exact tree, it will be down below, but there's a few changes you're going to probably want to make after watching the video in its entirety. Okay, so big bird's eye view, what did I pick up? Well, I picked up the entirety of Essence, Heist, Domination, all the map nodes, as well as some Harbinger action, and of course, full investment into Eater of Worlds. Now, I focused my Atlas though on Ambush, which does include taking the general candidates here, the twice tempted nodes, the secret operations for Scarab Strongboxes, the tamper-proof to corrupt all the boxes, but then one thing you don't generally see is this big Strongbox wheel here. This is the point of difference, and this is one of the things we were testing. So this big wheel is generally kind of thought of as a bit of a noob trap. All it gives you is 60% increased chance of the more rare Strongboxes, those being Arcanist, Diviners, and Cartographers, so it's going to juice those up and give you more of them, and it also gives you double currency, double divination, and double maps from all Strongboxes. So, you know, if you drop some currency from an armor Strongbox, it will be duplicated. Similarly, if you drop a map or anything like that, it will be duplicated. So for the main things that drop from Strongboxes, the things that matter, it's all doubled, which is pretty damn nice. What's not doubled though is the loot from the monsters surrounding the Strongboxes, which we're going to soon find out is the majority of the loot, which is pretty interesting. Okay, so that's a bit of an introduction to the tree. Again, it will be in the description below if you want to grab it. But that is kind of what we were rolling with, and let's break it down now. First thing to focus on, the main thing, Ambush. How much do we make? What are the details? Let's dive in. So the first thing we needed to understand is how many Strongboxes we were getting in our maps, and also how many of the special Strongboxes we were getting to kind of really understand how worth it some of the nodes are on the tree and how much you can expect to make from this mechanic in general overall. Well, I've done just that. I've painstakingly counted every Strongbox in my map, as well as every single special Strongbox that popped up. And I can tell you, out of 100 maps, I got 563 Strongboxes total. Now, this is interesting because I get 5 Strongboxes base, 4 from Kirac, 1 from the tree. And that means I got 63 free Strongboxes naturally. So overall, you know, that's pretty interesting factoid. But in general, I also got 29 Arcanist, 33 Operative, 16 Diviners, and sadly 4 Cartographers, meaning these Strongboxes are very rare. Now, Operatives has a 6% base chance to roll. That's pretty much bang on the money. Overall, we got the average. Arcanist, I got 5.15% of my boxes as Arcanist. So it's actually pretty rare. Rarer than Operative, in fact. Overall, 29 Arcanists, not too bad, but overall, it's not something you can reliably get. It's 1 in 20 boxes. Divine is even more rare than that, less than 3%. I got 16 in total, and Cartographers, less than 1%, barely worth a mention. I did get a bunch of other unique Strongboxes, which are there, useful information if you're interested in that kind of thing, but not too much in terms of the profit. Okay, let's break down how much we earned though. So now we kind of have the idea of, okay, these Strongboxes are pretty damn rare. Well, okay, maybe they're just worth it just from having them. Maybe they're actually gonna pay dividends, even though they are super rare and you're getting a bunch of jank lockboxes on top of that. Well, let's take a look at how much we have earned. Okay, so here is Grim's money spreadsheet. Now it's important to note, all of the values here are lifted from the program Excellence Next. Now, Excellence Next is essentially a program which will capture all of the kind of value of everything in a stash tab. It doesn't have everything, but I've manually added in and calculated things that it doesn't have. So for example, maps, it doesn't have that. Contracts, doesn't have that. Blueprints, doesn't have that. I've done that manually, but most of the things are only based off of PoE Ninja pricing. So that's where all the values are coming from. They're fully kosher. You're gonna have to trust me on this one, but I am trying to keep this as concise as possible. Now, part of that involves cutting out all of the chaff, which no one is planning on selling. So we're talking a massive culling of loot here. So things I picked up, which I'm not including, are low value divination card sets, random divination cards which aren't completed or you wouldn't consider selling, bulk maps, trash currencies, unique maps, and on the bigger scale, stuff like Metamorph organs, contracts you wouldn't sell like demolition. All this stuff has been chopped out and not included. Now, what we are selling though is the good stuff: Scarabs, currency, good layout maps, which are your favorites, good blueprints, and stuff like that. So it is refined, it's streamlined. This is how much you can actually realistically expect to make. Let's get into the results, break it down and discuss. So how much did we make from Strongboxes? Well, we made 10.9 exalts of currency. We were just talking about how you didn't get really too many of those powerful, kind of rare Strongboxes. That's fine. We made a killing. Well, how much did we invest though? How much money did we spend on getting those Strongboxes? Well, we only spent 400C on Kirac, meaning we made an absolutely whopping 800 plus chaos of profit just off of the loot alone. Add maps into that as well, 900 plus chaos profit just from Strongboxes when you isolate them as a mechanic. Damn, dude, that is a lot of currency. Strongboxes are pretty damn impressive. Well, you'd be completely right. They're really good. Now, let's take a look at a bit of a closer, detailed look at the kind of loot we got though, as there is some stuff to discuss here. So overall, I would describe most of the stuff here as stuff you could consistently get and it would be pretty damn reliable, assuming you spec'd into the nodes that I did. Now, we're going to discuss the viability of those in just a second here, but the main thing I want to talk a little bit about is Exalted Orbs. So I got a total of 3 Exalted Orbs from my Strongbox boxes. Now, I believe this to be far above the average that you should expect to get from around 500 to 600 Strongboxes. Let me talk about how these dropped. So I got one of the Exalted Orbs from monsters surrounding the boxes which kind of spawn. Now it's about 1 Exalted Orb per 50 maps from all monsters in your map. It's fairly rare to get an Exalt. So the fact that I got it from a Strongbox was a mere coincidence, and overall I wouldn't expect to get an Exalt from the monsters in general. The other 2 Exalted Orbs came from within an Armorer's Strongbox. I would have normally gotten 1, but it got duplicated by my Atlas passives. Now, the chance to get an Exalted Orb from an Armorer's Strongbox is absolutely astronomical from my experience. So in my opinion, I wouldn't expect to get these Exalted Orbs. Having said that though, overall, you could get them from the Arcanist Strongbox. It's potentially going to happen, but for the purpose of calculating the worth of Ambush, we're not going to include those because they are quite lucky. Everything else here I think is fairly reasonable. The only other thing to discuss here is the Divine Orbs. We have 16 Divine Orbs here. These were purely from 6-link corrupted items that dropped due to the existence of the passive Tamper Proof. All of your armors and weaponsmith Strongboxes are corrupted, leading to a large amount of these 6-links dropping. Overall, you're going to make some money. One other thing to observe here is if you are hiding 6 sockets on your filter, you will make significantly less money from Strongboxes, as we did get quite a lot of currency from the 6 sockets that we sold and picked up. Overall though, Strongboxes, reasonably powerful. How powerful? Are they worth it? Let's determine it. Okay, jump back into our spreadsheet here. Okay, so with our lucky revenue, we made 10.9 exalts excluding maps. If you include maps, it gets bumped up to 12. We could, go ahead and put 12 there overall, but we're going to exclude maps for now because some people don't like selling them. And unlucky revenue is 7.9. Okay, not too bad, not too bad, not too bad. How much money is that per box? Well, it's actually about 1.75 chaos per box that we opened, that we made in revenue. Okay, well, how much did those boxes cost us though? So we got one for free. That's great. Let's ignore that one for now. Let's see how much they cost us. Well, we get 4 boxes from Kirac for 1C each, meaning we almost double our money per Strongbox that we open without even selling maps. That's a pretty damn good deal. Doubling your money on a mechanic which takes no time at all? Absolutely. Fantastic. Kirac is worth it. All right, let's enter rusted cost. Rusted Scarabs here. Are those worth it? Well, you get 3 Strongboxes and it costs 5C for a Scarab, meaning you're paying 1.6C per box in your map. Now, you're only making 1.75 though, so they're actually not worth it in my opinion. Absolutely not. I would not be buying Rusted Scarabs. With everything that I've done here, I've literally fully juiced my map with altars. I've taken all the box nodes and I'm only making 1.75. granted without an Exalted Orb, but still not worth it from my perspective because you could lose a box here and there to your layout, you could get unlucky. You know, overall, it's not worth it to buy those Scarabs because I'm including the loot from the monsters from there as well as the loot inside the box with all the nodes. Definitely a little bit questionable. Polished, it gets worse, and then gilded, worse again. So unless you've got some form of strategy that really juices boxes even more than I was doing with the altars and with all the nodes, definitely not worth looking into these Scarabs at these price ranges. But you can use my number here as a bit of a guide. You know, maybe they come down in price. Maybe you can earn more from them from Scarabs and stuff like that. Other stuff that kind of drop from the boxes. But overall, right now, Scarabs not worth it. Kirac, very worth it. All right, so that's Ambush in a nutshell. Most of the money is going to come from the Divine Orbs, which is the most consistent stuff. Interestingly enough, it does drop the Ichas and Embers, and it also drops quite a nice amount of Scarabs, obviously, and some other bulk currency. And if you're looking to kind of increase your map sustain, well, Strongbox can be a pretty good candidate, as most of the maps that dropped did drop from the monsters around there, and you don't actually have to invest in those big investment nodes on the tree. So, summing it up. Is Ambush worth it? Well, using Kirac as an example, yes. If you can pay 1C per Strongbox, absolutely. Would I invest in these nodes up here? Probably not. Most of the money came from 6 links, as well as some lucky Exalt drops, which weren't even related to these nodes in the first place. So overall, I think these nodes are not worth taking, and I would recommend against taking them, but I would recommend having Strongbox on your tree with the other two nodes, 2 sets of nodes here. Overall, that's my conclusion on Strongbox. It was pretty nice in terms of the profitability, and you can see here that it contributed quite nicely to our overall margin. So, pretty damn nice. Kirac, not too bad. Strongboxes, pretty big win. All right, let's move on to the rest of the results here, which is going to kind of give you guys a pretty good picture of how much you guys can expect to make from your Alch and Goad maps. There's plenty to break down here. Let's get through it. First of all, let's cover the expenses. These are reasonably high. Well, they kind of look a little bit intimidating for a lot of players. Let's break it down and make them feel a little bit less scary. So overall, maps. Maps are something that you may need to buy, or you may just have lying around. Now, I chose to run City Square as it is going to increase your profit quite a lot if you abuse the altar technology, which I mentioned earlier. But they're not too scary. You can run any map and it's going to drop this price significantly. But I want you guys to pay attention here to how many maps we actually got. So overall, we got 157 of our favorite layout map just from doing our maps with the map nodes and low investment. In addition to that, we earned further maps, another 27 from our Strongboxes. So already we've almost doubled our map sustain of our favorite map. So map sustain is really great right now if you take the nodes and you follow a similar tree to me. So right now you shouldn't have to worry about maps as an expense at all. You should have infinite maps. You should be selling the maps. So this expense kind of pays for itself here. And you can see here that we're actually even making money off maps instead of losing money. So don't worry too much about that. That will cover itself. Chisels. All right, chisels are actually something that we actually fully sustained. We earned over 400 chisels, in part thanks to some of the Strongboxes. They dropped quite a lot from boxes, but in part also just to them dropping a lot in maps. Pretty damn nice. Okay, next up, Vile Orbs. We did have to buy a few of these, but these are very cheap. You can get some of these from your maps. Overall, not too much to worry about. You're going to make them back easily. Alchemy Orbs, fully sustained. We over-sustained, made over 200 alchs. Sextants, let's talk a little bit about this. Okay. Sextants are an interesting topic. If you have access to some void stones, you should absolutely be sextanting every single map you run. They're going to add monsters to your maps, which is more money, and also you're actually just going to make your money back from rolling sextants themselves, because you're going to use the bad mods like the pack size and all sorts of stuff like that, and you can sell the really niche specific ones like Beyond, Harvest, and stuff like that. So in general, overall, my 100 maps, I made 360 from capturing and selling sextant modifiers. So I've priced each of these charged compasses, which I've captured here, and it adds up to about 306C. So you can see I've got Legion, Sacred Grove, Ulnatul, Alba, etc. So I've completely paid back my money on sextants just from selling sextants that I earned. Now, I'm not sure how lucky I got or anything like that, but it's also important to note that I made a further 41 sextants back just from mapping myself on top of the ones that I spent. So I actually, kind of semi-sustained my sextants here, which is pretty nice. So you can see here I have 20 in here, and then I got a further 21 from my Strongboxes. So overall, pretty damn nice. Not too bad there, and I would definitely, not be scared of using sextants. Use them whenever you can. Bottle up the good ones, which you can't use yourself, and sell them. All right, next up, Scarabs. So you're not going to sustain these, but they absolutely pay dividends, and we will get into that in just a moment here. But overall, you should be Scarabing every map. Use every slot on your map device to put a Scarab in, and I'm going to show you guys why. Now, we did use a sacrificial fragment here because of the emergency situation on the Strongbox side of things, but overall, these were cheap. They add some quant, but you should be putting a better Scarab in here in its place. Overall, Ambush. Kirac, we already discussed that. It's well and truly worth your time. It's not an expense you need to worry about. We absolutely blew this expense out of the water with the amount of money we made. All right, now that we've gone through the expenses, we don't have to worry about those. They pretty much all pay for themselves or are self-sustained. Let's talk about where all the money came from, because that's the fun part. All right, first of all, some of the things which are kind of, consistent and you're going to be making in every single map. Heist. So I actually chose to spec quite heavily into Heist, but I have been paying very close attention to the amount of contracts and blueprints I've been getting from the caches in maps, which I've spec'd so heavily into, and I have now determined that it's not worth it. It's a lot of points, and I would much prefer to spend this somewhere else, like Bestiary or in some other league mechanic. I think that you don't get enough contracts and blueprints to justify the point cost, and in further trees, I will no longer be speccing into Heist as a passive moneymaker, because you drop tons of contracts and tons of blueprints just from general monsters, and the actual caches themselves actually aren't that impactful when compared to the amount of stuff you drop from monsters. So overall, we actually did make quite a lot of money from Heist. We made 4.2 exalts in total from Heist, but I think a large portion of that, probably 3 to 3.5 exalts of that, is just from the stuff that we dropped in maps anyway, which we would have naturally got without speccing into it in the tree. So overall, Heist, big money maker. Definitely sell these contracts and blueprints still, but probably don't spec into the nodes on the tree. Now, again, making sure that you guys understand, I took all of the trash contracts out. This is the pure juice, only the good contracts, which will sell instantly on TFT. All right, moving on. Let's take a look at the next one. We've already talked about the Sextant sales. We made 2.4 exalts off that, which completely wipes out our Sextant expenses. All right, Strongboxes, already talked about that. We made about 12 exalts off that, which was pretty damn good. Not too bad. If you're willing to sell some of the maps that you have favorited, not too bad at all. All right, let's talk about general loot from Alk and Go. Now, the first one I want to talk about here is Harbinger. So there's quite a little bit of discussion around whether the Harbinger nodes are worth it, whether or not you should be having them. And overall, I believe Harbinger to be one of the best league mechanics to have in your maps for, low investment as well as high investment. Let's break down why. First of all, there's a fact that we need to get out of the way. Harbingers are one of the best mechanics for map sustain. Absolutely, they are one of the main contributing factors to why I oversustained almost double my maps. Definitely, no question about it. You should be running Harbinger if you need map sustain. Now, let's talk a little bit about whether or not they pay for themselves outside of map sustain though, because, generally it's about 2C per Harbinger. Now, if you're using Rusteds, they are quite a lot cheaper. You can get quite a pretty good price. You can get 1 Harbinger for 1C. That's a pretty damn big bargain. So overall, they're kind of polished. They kind of start getting up in price. They cost about 4 to 5C in bulk, and you're getting 3 Harbingers. So overall, it's about 1 to 2C per Harbinger. And if you're using Kirac, well, it's 2C per Harbinger. So overall, are Harbingers worth it? Well, I can tell you exactly how many Exalted Shards I got over 100 maps from just having my natural Harbinger on the tree as well as a Rusted Harbinger Scarab. Let's dive in. Okay, so I got 2 Exalts as well as 6 Exalted Shards from my Harbingers over 100 maps. Now, I also got a further 1 Exalt as a pure Exalt drop from the Atlas passive node here, which gives you a chance to get a full stack of Exalted Shards, which is, unspeakable offensive. We're going to exclude that for the purpose of this because that was lucky and most people aren't going to get that. So 2.3 exalts from my Harbingers. How much is that? 2.3 times 125. 287C. So overall, we spent 200C on our Harbingers right now, on our Scarabs. So we got a ton of money from those. So we got 3 Harbingers per map. So we divide that just from Exalted Shards. If we're paying 1C per Harbinger, they pay back completely. No questions asked. Rusted is absolutely worth using on every single map because they pay themselves back just in Exalted Shards, even if you don't get lucky on any of the other sort of, full currency drops. But it doesn't stop there. What if we add in the Ancient Orbs we got as well? So this is a further 64C worth of Ancient Orbs that we can add into our total here. So that's 351C now that we've gotten our pure Harbinger currency drops. Add in the Harbinger Orbs, which are worth, let's see how much, another 2, or I will say 2C per. which is another 18C, and we're kind of starting to get up to the 400C part. So whether or not you kind of want Harbingers in your map or not, if you're looking for sustain, Harbinger's the choice, and they fully pay for themselves and more if you're paying 1C per Harbinger. Now the question kind of opens up, should we put Kirac Harbingers on the map? Well, in my opinion, yes. They drop enough loot, they drop enough maps, and they also drop enough shards where I think it is worth it, because they're not only dropping Harbinger, Exalt, and Ancient shards, they're also dropping Chaos shards, which have a chance to be fully upgraded to Chaos Orbs, as well as Horizon shards and Horizon Orbs, which have a chance to be fully upgraded as well. So overall, I think Harbingers are a big win. They more than pay for themselves at 1C per. So if you're not running Rusted Harbinger and you've got an open Scarab slot, it's a no-brainer if you have those Harbinger slots on your map device. Absolutely run them. They're going to make you big money, and they're going to give you a ton more map sustain, which turns into more money. All right, pretty damn good. All right, let's move on to the next one here. Okay, so Harbinger's out of the way, let's talk about Essence. So I invested quite a lot of Essence on my tree. How much did it pay out? Well, I upgraded all the Screamings to Shriekings, and I took out everything below that off my stash tab, and well, we have some pretty interesting results. Let's go over to the Essence tab. So here is my Essence tab. Well, how much did we earn? We earned 4.2 Exalts worth of Essences from 100 maps, taking out all the bad ones. Well, that's pretty damn good money. For some Atlas passes on the tree, which aren't too high investment, Essence is an absolute rock star. You should definitely be looking into it. All right, next up, I want to dive a little bit into Metamorph. So we were running a Rusted Metamorph Scarab or Polished Metamorph Scarab on every map. They're 1C each right now. And just from Catalyst alone, which only come from Metamorph, not including any of the other loot, we earned 2.5 Exalts. Oh my goodness, Metamorph is an absolute steal right now. If you're not running Metamorph, you can be making massive gains. And you can also look into Gilded Metamorph or some Atlas passives to juice it up further. Metamorph, if you have an open slot, no brainer. Absolutely chuck it on. It's going to make you money just from selling the catalysts. Pretty damn good. All right, that's pretty damn strong. Well, overall, we made a ton of money. We made an absolute ton of money off of our Scarabs as well as our Atlas passives on the tree. Let's talk a little bit about Eater of Worlds, because Eater of Worlds contributed probably the most in terms of specific mechanics to our profit. So from Ichors and Embers, we earned 3.4 Exalts from our Ichors and Embers. Pretty damn good, not too bad. But where it really came into its own is Scarabs. My goodness, 7.1 Exalts worth of Scarabs from Eater of Worlds in City Square. This is the Scarab tab, all specifically from mapping. This isn't the Strongbox side of things, it's just Eater of Worlds. Oh my goodness, 7.1 Exalts. That is an absolute cash cow. So overall, Scarabs are going to be worth quite a lot. They sell in bulk. The more you have, the more you charge. Overall, very, very strong. So in total, we made almost 10 Exalts of monies from just, over 10 Exalts, just from doing the Eater of Worlds altars effectively. Now, and also, it's worth noting that these do contribute to the general currency drops, as I mentioned earlier, as well as map drops, as I mentioned earlier. So overall, very strong. It's going to be very strong. You should definitely be farming altars if you can do it. And City Square is a no-brainer if you enjoy the altar playstyle, as you can manipulate that map pool and the kind of altar drop rates of the different mods. So pretty damn good. Not too bad. If you're interested in Conquerors, I can give you exact rates here. Keep in mind, some of these were duplicated by the altars as well as my Atlas passives. But in general, we made 1.6 Exalts of Conqueror maps. Overall, that's going to look a little bit like this. So 3 Cirrus maps, a ton of Shaper Guardians for some reason, only 1 Elder Guardian. I got 1 Synthesis map. And of course, we have our invitations over here in general. So that's going to be the full breakdown, guys. How much did we earn? Well, 61.1 Exalts revenue, 14.5 expenses in terms of Exalts. So that gives us a profit of 46.6 Exalts, or half an Exalt profit per map. 58C profit per map. You put a map in, takes 4 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes, and you are making 60C per map. My goodness, that is great. Fantastic. What's really great about this strategy though is it is accessible. We're not doing delirium mirrors here. You can do this on almost any character. All you need is some city squares, some absolute low tier Scarabs, and some Atlas passives, some of which you can actually exclude. You can go for additional things on top of that, further invest into Harbinger, go and take another lead mechanic, test out something new. You can push this even further, and absolutely, I am convinced you can get over 50 to 60 exalts profit in Out and Go maps just from doing another lead mechanic. I think it's crazy just how much opportunity is out there for all players on such a low amount of maps run. You can make an absolute killing, and as I mentioned, this is all stuff that's easily sellable. There's no chaff in here, there's no bad stuff to sell. You guys can get rich as well. This is over almost half a headhunter that we made here in 100 maps. I think it's pretty impressive. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. This is a new style. If you want to see more or you want to recommend some other lead mechanics for me to test, definitely comment down below. I'd really appreciate it. See you guys in the next one. Cheers.